All right, welcome to part two of color class. And right now we're just going to show examples of gradients, both in photography and in painting. And I find this is the first time I've ever taught this class, gradients, which seems so weird because gradients meaning the transition from one color to another or one value to another, which seems like such an obvious and basic thing, but really is so important. And we see it everywhere. It could be like on the light as it hits a pear. It can be on the sky and a sunset. I mean, even midday sky. I mean, right here behind me, there's a gradient on that blue painting behind me in the sky, just going from lighter white all the way up to blue. So gradients are everywhere, and making them work in painting seems so basic, but it can be really tricky. And so we're going to talk about that. But first, let's look at some examples. All right, everybody see my page here with a whole bunch of little photos?
Yes.
All right, great. I'm going to scoot this over so the images get bigger. We're going to start here. I can't make it. Okay, we're going to do it this way, or I can blow it up. All right, do you see it in a black screen now, or do you still see the white one?
Black screen.
All right, so this way I can zoom in. So here the sky is all bleached out and light, a little bit of a gradient from warmer to cooler, but the big gradient here is in the landscape. This one is out of order. I was meaning to show this one last, but do you guys see how the color stays pretty similar, this brownish gold color? And then it goes from light to darker, right? So a gradient is that transition. Here in this sky, do you see that transition in color as it goes from the warm yellows up to the bluey greens and then up into the gray blues?
Yeah.
It's amazing when we start to look for gradients, we're going to see them everywhere. So even in this grass, it's a much more subtle gradient than in the sky. And the color or the hue transition is not, it's always green, but you see how it's lighter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And gets darker and a little bit redder as it comes towards us, a little redder green. Love this one. This is one when I found this photo, I was like, how did I never paint this? Old farm, but this transition of colors from this blue, cool blue of the mountains to the lighter blue, to the dirty mauve, to the pinkish, to the orangish, to the yellowish. I love seeing these transitions, right? So what I like to think about when I'm approaching a painting like this, and I normally don't think of it as in gradients, I just think of it as color areas, but gradients is a great term and a great way to approach large areas in paintings. Is what, if we squint our eyes at this, what is the primary two colors in this sky area?
Blue and yellow.
Blue and yellow, right? But when we look at it, that little band of just pinkish purple right there is so attractive, right?
Yeah.
That we would really focus on that. And I could crop the image to zoom in on it, right? Let's do that real quick. Like if I really didn't care about the blues, right? Still a beautiful image. But I really like seeing that warm, that cool, these darks, these lights, It's got all this beautiful contrast in a very simple and very almost meditatively like clean image, right?
Yeah.
But how many of you guys would be comfortable doing all those bands of color or know how to approach it?
I would love to learn.
Let's do it. All right.
I see
Perfect.
that every day. I
All
see
right.
it
So
every day.
exactly,
You
Linda.
do.
I was totally thinking about you when I was designing this class. So if anybody doesn't like today's lesson, blame it on Linda Camarada. One of my favorite things is where the transitions are the same value. So it's just color transitions, but the values stay the same, the lightness and darkness. So let's turn it into a black and white. So I'm just going to go to my saturation and I'm going to go down. And look at that. Almost no difference from the top to the bottom, right? A lot of times when we see color, and we're going to be talking about this for all of the next 7 weeks, don't worry about it, because value, the light and the dark, and the chroma or the hue, the color, are really confusing. A lot of colors we see instinctually as lighter or darker. We see yellows as lighter, even when they're can be kind of dark. We see blues as darker. We see reds as darker, but you can see how close in value the sky is. So how do we, and I can even push up the saturation to really make it strong. So a lot of times when I paint, Michelle and Graham, a lot of times when I'm painting from an image, I will actually print a black and white and a color version of it, just as a reminder to myself that values do all the work, colors get all the credit. All right, you probably heard that before. So what our assignment for this week, because I always forget to give you guys your homework. Your assignment is to look for gradients in photos and in paintings and in real life. Look for those subtle transitions. I'm really lucky. One of my windows here in my studio faces due west. So if I'm up here long enough in the studio, which is most nights, I'll literally take a moment to just go observe the sunset and watch the gradients in color. You know, maybe if I wanted to keep these power lines, I'd throw a couple birds up there or straighten them across. But the same old barn, same view. But I just love these gradients and so much action right here, right? The bands of color are much closer. So I want you to pay attention to that. See that? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
What happens a lot of times when people are doing sunsets, sunrise, or exciting skies is it becomes very stripy. It becomes blue, yellow, orange, purple, blue. And it looks like a flag to me. That's what I always think is, oh, it's a flag of some country I've never been to, probably in Africa, probably has great mugs. And this is you guys remember Don Bishop, my friend, the tonalist painter? This is his girlfriend's painting, which is so funny because the
How nice.
Yeah, she does great and paints really well. She's from Australia, super fun. Unfortunately, her name is not remembering it right now, but I just love these bands of color. She does tons and tons of these great big landscapes. I believe they're acrylic. And when I find her name, I'll add it to the painting and we can look at more of her work. But she's almost, and she considers herself more of an abstract painter. Almost like she really takes the landscape and simplifies it. But what's so powerful is both the contrast, right? The cools and the warms, but the bands of transition that are so subtle and beautiful. I posted a couple of these just to show you guys. So I think some of you guys have taken classes where you've done these color charts. they're beautiful and wonderful. I rarely do sectioned off color charts like this, where I put them into squares. I'm always curious why we do that as instructors and as artists. I prefer bands of color, like connected. And it's just easier to do, for one. And I do them all the time. I found myself being hypnotized by color yesterday. So I guess I shouldn't say I haven't painted since I painted last night. And here's just a clear blue sky, or almost clear. It's a little hazy, but just that band of transition. Right. So our homework is going to be to observe and to create one or two small gradient paintings. Right. So it could be, light blue to dark, light blue to darker blue. It can be yellow to purple. It can be whatever you want to do. And I'm going to explain a little more about that. Look at how punchy this one is, right?
Wow.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, it is amazing, right? And I can't wait to paint it. But what's tricky about it is that what's going on in this? How many colors are in this? All of them.
Would you put that on, is that one on Padlet?
Not positive, but I'll get it on there.
Thank you.
But what happens is, and so Graham and Michelle, you're the two that are the new students. I saw some of Michelle's paintings, so you have experience. And how about you, Graham? It looks like you have some paintings behind you. You have some painting experience.
Yeah, I'll show you my.
Oh, there goes Graham. We scared him away.
Yeah. No, he's
Oh,
bringing
look
it.
at that
Oh,
gradient.
how nice.
Yeah, I do have a little experience.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. Okay. Great. Okay, so good. So you guys already know that when you mix a primary and a secondary from across the color wheel, the color you get is brown or gray, which is actually going to be next week's class. So it can get tricky when you're dealing with blue, green, yellow, orange, red, purpley mauve, right? Because what happens is where you want this light, all of a sudden you get mud, right? You get brown, you get gray. So it's really important that we're cleaning our brushes, we're transitioning. The other thing is I actually watched a number of videos on gradients on YouTube, almost all from acrylic painters and almost always somewhat abstracted. And it really hurt my feelings because I was just like, they're so basic. And, my apologies to anybody who sees this video. But they're so basic and they just took the paint right out of the tube. Right. And they were just like, here's blue, here's red, and in the middle it becomes purple. And that's instructional, but not really useful as landscape painters, right? We never get to use our colors right out of the tube, right? They always take some kind of interaction with other colors. And what I want you to be aware of is we're painting these, is I want you in this homework to think about the sky. You can do other versions that, maybe it's the water or something else, and just let me know. But I want it to be about the sky. And what's going to be the difference is we're going to have to add probably white, right? The sky is much, much lighter. If I put down, right out of the tube, ultramarine blue or even manganese blue, it's going to be so dense and so dark that it will look like chaos. If I put red right out of the tube, right? So I want you to do a little bit of color mixing and then figure out the gradient. This is Amy Erickson. I've talked about her before. She's a friend of mine. She has an amazing book out there about plein air painting. I believe this is a painting we did together. I'm not totally positive. But what I like about her work is she loves gradients. She even teaches like Nike people about color and stuff here in Beaverton, where the Nike headquarters is. But what I want you to see is that gradients aren't in the sky only. Look at the gradients in the tree, where it's getting a lot more light, a lot more transparent light coming through, and then goes down to this beautiful brown. And then in other areas, it goes all the way to mauve or to greens. So gradients are everywhere in our paintings. This is another of Amy's amazing paintings, just beautiful, right? Look at the gradient in the hill. Look at the gradient in the sky. Look at the gradient going sideways in the clouds. I've got 3 of Amy's paintings here in my studio just because I just adore her work. I think she's one of the best. And I just love how within things she has gradients. Another one of hers. Look at this, orange to blue, orange, green, and they're kind of dirty, but yet gorgeous colors, right? She's a little looser. So, you know, as I'm getting to know the newer students and getting to know, you know, a little more about some of you as painters, I know some of you like tight and rendered paintings, more photographic, and some of you like more impressionistic and loose, and that's great. And it all works and still applies to both styles of painting. This is a photo.
Nice.
Just love the purples next to those warms. Another photo of just kind of an early morning that I took, that I just kind of love this. Isn't it interesting that when we look into the sky, we don't really see green? We see bluish and orangish and pinkish.
Yeah.
But when you kind of squint your eyes at it, it's green. Right? So we're going to talk about different ways of applying a gradient, right? We have very smooth, where we just kind of keep blending the 2 colors together and creating that transition. There's another way, which I think of Joaquin Sorolla and John Singer Sargent, where they would create a third, or a living artist would be like Eric Bowman, where they create a third color to connect the 2, right? That transition. So even if we look at this finger here, right? I don't know if you guys can see the little screen, but you see the shadow on the top that I'm casting, and then the reflected light off my desk bouncing in. It's
No.
not a real direct line, right? That transition has a reddish in between the 2, the light and the shadow, right? So there's other ways to make gradients. Gradients can be small or they can be long. Here's gradients with impressionism, which we call broken color, or where our eye. So when we look at this, right, we see all these little dabs of paint, right? You know, and that's kind of what we come to think of as impressionism. Now squint your eyes, and those little dabs just blend together, optical mixing. And that, I think that's the magic. I just find so much joy in optical mixing, where we put 2 colors beside each other and they create a third. Right? So we're going to be talking about all these different ways of creating gradients, right? So that one was just an example of, this one's on our color references, but it's just a quick kind of notes about different colors if you're wondering about colors. This is one of my favorite living painters from the Ukraine, Denis. I don't know exactly how to say his last name, Gorodnichi. But I just really like his, this is actually really loose for him, but all of his work has a very painterly, thick impasto feeling. Impasto just means thicker, juicier paint versus, you know, thin brush strokes. You can definitely tell it's a painting, even though when you squint your eyes, it takes on a lot of realism in it. But I just love these gradients. Love this sideways gradient from the purples to the pinks and back out to the blues. Same gradient in the grasses. So he's got a smooth gradient. He's got a slightly dappled gradient. And then he's got a much more brushy, impressionistic, broken color gradient. All in the same painting. Can you tell me, Nyla, why would he do a different gradient for different areas? Oops, sorry, you're muted.
For one thing, it kind of pulls your eye into the center of the painting, and for another, it shows the depth of the painting. You've got the darker toward the front in the grass, and it gets lighter as you move out. So that gives a feeling of depth to the painting.
That's right. Yeah. And also the sky just appears smoother, whereas this grass has an innate texture to it, right?
Right.
We'll see a lot of impressionist paintings where there is a lot of texture and, you know, broken color in the sky. So it's not like a rule, but he uses this really well, where, you know, it's a lot of texture, a lot of, you know, broken brushwork, some broken brushwork, which actually gives us almost like a sense of the water is calm, but it's got a sense of movement and ripples, whereas the sky feels very still and quiet. I love just, yeah, there's another one of his paintings. Look at this transition, this gradient, right? And it goes all the way through if we just think of values. Let's go ahead and change this to a black and white. But look at this darkest dark, darkest dark, darkest dark. And then look how it gets lighter and lighter. Then you see a haze across the horizon. So you almost don't even know where the earth starts and the sky begins, or earth ends and the sky begins, do you? Just subtle. And then up and up and up. Just beautiful. And this is a tricky gradient. Orange to green can very easily create mud, right? Oops, sharpness. I didn't mean to do sharpness. I meant to do saturation. So now the gradient of values, the lights and the darks, becomes much clearer. Right? Dark to light, and then big light area. So you see here, even though there's a lot of color, what's happening with those values?
The same value.
Same value. Dark to light in the water as it's going back towards the light source or the reflected light. And he could have played it up, right? He could have really made it punchy and crazy, which might be really dynamic and interesting for some people. But I like, once you see this just feels so quiet. But then you go back to this and it's really, really, really quiet. So I do this a lot with my photos where I'll punch up, you know, and I just kind of take this scroll bar back and forth until I feel like, you know, what is it? What's my intention? Do I want a real quiet, desaturated image? All right.
What program is that?
This is the photo program that just comes on my computer. It's nothing special. It's
Oh, great.
just my photo editor. Yeah. I'll use Photoshop in the class from time to time, which is the real deal, like the main, you know, the real Photoshop.
Yeah.
But I may get rid of it because I use 1/1000th of its capabilities and pay the full price for it. And I find myself using this program a lot. Let's look at this really quick on that same thing. So going back and let's just see edit, right? So go to adjustments and then I'm just going to go to saturation, right? So this feels very pure to me, right? The greens are pure, the blue is gorgeous, the sky is subtle, right? But I could absolutely knock it up and it becomes a different feeling, right?
Yeah.
I think that could still be a nice painting. Probably not one I do. Just again, future knowledge for you. My paintings tend towards earthier, more grayed down, more browns, typically, but I still love vibrant color.
It's amazing how much more definition on the barn there is when you increase that saturation.
Right. Yeah, let's look at that again. Right. It punches the green,
Yeah.
green.
Well, the white stands out.
Right. Good point.
Yeah. And we could, you know, there's other things we can do. We can push the contrast.
Ooh.
All
fun
right,
to-
now it's almost
that's
nighttime.
nice.
That's kind of cool, right?
Yeah,
It just kind of almost floats there. I'd probably do it right about there. Yeah, it's fun to just play with these and just experiment and see what happens. I also love to experiment with the warmth because I like warmer paintings typically.
Yeah.
mhm.
So yeah, when you find your photo, play with it, experiment, try different options. And that's kind of gorgeous with the purples.
Mm, very.
Let's push that and now that and
Wow.
Ooh.
hopefully there's a bunker in that barn. Anyways, please experiment. Please, again, hopefully you wrote it. Maybe write it again in all caps. What if? All right. Go through a couple more real quickly. Some more subtle ones. And these are going to be options for you in our Padlet. Very fine band of warm and then all the rest cool. Then you get these little accents of warms along the tops. This is one of Gail's photos. She has a lot more on the bottom of it, but I kind of thought it might be interesting just to zoom in, use these stripes of agriculture here to kind of lead the eye. This might be actually one that I use as a demo today, if that's okay, Gail.
That's an Iowa photo.
Oh, never mind then.
Midwestern agriculture.
Yeah, here's just a bunch of examples of different gradients that, I mean, just kind of a lot of times I'll take a photo, I'll turn it into a black and white and never look at the color version again. And then I'll go find my color influence from somewhere else, whether it's a rug or a mug or a, whatever it is, another painting. And like this is really interesting to me, right? How would I make that work? How would I make this work? Oh, this is gorgeous, right? So a lot of times it's just, again, what if? This is for my tonalist friends in the class here.
Wow.
Love this one. Yeah, right? It's so beautiful,
Yes.
right? And I always say that I want my work to have a meditational, Zen-like feeling. I don't know if I could paint something like this and not touch it again, but this is like the almost perfect meditational Zen painting, right? Like put this into, a angry teenager's room and see if they don't chill out a little bit. And I love it. And again, let's take this because it's here, right? Let's edit that and transition and just see what happens, right? Let's take the saturation up.
That's pretty.
Not as beautiful anymore for me. I don't love acidy yellows very much. Look at how subtle it is without color, right? So as far as values, the lights and darks, there's not much at all. In one of the previous classes, we did high key, low key, mid key paintings. And this would very much be, it's a photo, but if it was a painting, it would very much be a high key painting, right? It's all very light. If we were to put these values next to a, black to white grayscale value finder, it would all be towards the top. You can also just change the warmth there. Now I kind of like it. Like that's the kind of yellow I can get behind. Let's see if we even warm it up more. I still like that, right? I could still see this as being useful for my landscape painting. It makes beautiful blues and purples. So it's a lot of fun to just experiment with these different tools. Linda Camarada, oh, are you there? Yep, you are there. See, I could totally see you doing a painting with these colors. Same with you, Bonnie Little.
Yeah,
I know you don't like
I
the
love
bright
color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
totally see these purples and pinks working in some of your work.
I just get lost in that. I see that every day. It's just amazing that the skyline and how the gradients goes to that pink,
Yeah.
purpley blue at the top. And
Yeah, so for today's painting, my intention is to show you a gradient and then quickly turn it into a landscape. But your homework is not to do that if you don't want to. Your homework is to simply make gradients. They could be high key, strong colors and punchy, or they can be super subtle and beautiful. Well, I shouldn't say beautiful because that's showing my bias. Super subtle and calm like this. All right, I don't want to spend too much more time here. I really like this paint or photo, I think. Same thing, just cools. And what I like about this is it's an inverse, right? It's this, the gradient going up and then the gradient coming back down. We'll see that in some of the reflected skies. And Linda, I actually grabbed one of your painting or photos. I stretched the sky. I made it vertical versus a horizontal. I just thought that might be kind of interesting, just experimenting. Super subtle gradients of just the blue skies. So you can see how even in a, not a lot of color change, but the gradient is so important. When I look for it, I can almost always see a gradient in a sky, right? A lot of times people will just paint the whole background blue. Even if I look over the back of Nyla's shoulder at her grandchildren's beautiful painting, right? That blue sky above you there with the green is the child looked at it and said, that's blue, and painted it blue. But I'm going to ask, and that's normal. That's totally normal. And that's how a lot of beginning painters paint. But what I want you to do is see the delicacy in the transitions and in the gradients.
look at the sun where it's going to come up in that middle, right in the middle, right in.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
I see that in the morning and in the evening when the sun sets, how it throws that golden red purple hue on the earth.
Yeah,
And then reflects across on, I looked across yesterday and it was like reflecting on a gate, a metal gate, and it was just golden, that purple orange looking color. And I was just in awe.
yeah, I mean, it would be almost a beautiful painting, just the red portion of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
this one. Yes,
Michael,
please. Yeah, Don.
could you go back to the vertical slice of Linda's sky? Yeah, that one. Now, this one, what grabbed me was it looks like you could do a gradient of the sky and then layer over the top a gradient in the clouds.
Yeah.
Don, shut your mouth.
Look at all the
You
gold.
jumped ahead, Don. You stole my thunder.
Oh,
That was
shit.
literally no. Please always say that. That was literally the demo I was going to do. Is look, it's two gradients.
Yes.
No,
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. You get a gold star for the day.
A
Good
lot
job.
more than two. Look at the clouds on the bottom left.
Yeah.
They've got a yellow gradient, and the
Right.
ones above have a pink gradient.
Right.
Isn't it weird how we see all this all the time, but putting a term to it, all of a sudden we see it so much more? It's amazing to me how many students will say, I just see the world differently after taking one of your classes, right? And it's just, we observe what we can label. We see what we label, right? Like, the saying is like when you're going to buy a car, right? And you're thinking about cars and you're like, oh, I'm going to buy a Toyota Camry. All of a sudden you see Toyota Camrys everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. For my wife and I, when we were making our garden 5-10 years ago before coronavirus, and then really got into it during the pandemic, just on all of our walks, all of a sudden we were seeing whatever flower or plant or tree we were thinking about putting in. All of a sudden you realize, oh, all the neighbors have these, and you just see them. Now we see golden retrievers everywhere. Yeah, this transition is just gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
Just something about the purple next to pink just excites me so much now.
Me too.
Let's just edit in on that. Let's just see. What if we did a small gradient? It didn't have so much orange.
That's what
Wow.
we do.
Wow,
Isn't that gorgeous?
Very abstract.
that's beautiful.
Right, even if you got rid of the mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right, Linda Camarada, your homework is to do this one.
okay.
Linda's photos have these colors in them all the time. That little bit of dust that you get out there in the desert that just kicks up.
Yep. You know, while we've been off for this month, I went out and started painting on my utility shed in back of my house.
Oh yeah.
And I've only used red, yellow, and blue, and a touch of white on occasion, not much white, just using water, of course, in acrylics. I didn't do oils or anything, but it's been amazing the colors that I can get with just red, yellow, and blue. And I see it in everything. Even in the shoes, I see red, yellow, and blue in it. So it's
Absolutely. No, and that's what's so neat. And so I just want you to see the gradients here done a completely different way, right? If we squint our eyes, it's, it goes from the yellow up to the red, but he's just doing it with a crosshatch way. So there's so many ways to do gradients. If you want a more, final, like Titan, perfect gradation, or you can do it in a much more impressionistic way. Even this painting has gradients in it, right? It's so splotchy, but again, when we squint our eyes, look at these transitions as they go back. All right, 1, 2 more real quick here. And these again are on our site, actually a couple more. So John Singer Sargent, you're going to hear me say his name. Here's one more. Really meditative. Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah.
John Singer Sargent's one of my favorite painters of all time, American painter. And I just love, these gradients are so subtle, but even within, just the ground plane, a little bit darker, up to lighter, a little bluer, a little pinker. So that's your job this week, is to really just start paying attention to gradients and seeing. This piece would be so boring if these were all just filled in squares, but within each square or rectangle are gradients, every single one of them. Maybe not this one, but even it has a little more blue here compared to the warmth in here, right?
It's the reason.
And then one of the most subtle ones I could find. Do you guys know this painting by John Singer Sargent? It's one of my, I don't want to say favorite paintings, but it's a painting that just stops me in my tracks of like, would I have seen that? Like if I was just hiking up these stairs and I'm going to guess Italy or Greece, would I have stopped and thought this is beautiful? I hope I would. But within each one of these patterns, here's the black and white. Within each one of these patterns is a gradient. It's very subtle, right? Darker, cooler to warmer as it's getting more reflected light bouncing into this wall. This cast shadow makes this step the bluest. Isn't that interesting? It's like double shadowed. Here's a zoomed in version of it. So gradients can be strong and punchy, like in this example from Gail, or super sensitive and super delicate and super gradual. All right, any questions on gradients? Thought I heard the beginning of something. All right, we're going to take another 5-minute break, and then I'm going to be at the easel. And I am not going to do a color wheel this week. We're going to find a time to make that happen, and we're going to paint some gradients.
All right.
That good?
Good.
Sounds good. Good.
You guys are awesome. All right. See you in 5.
Cheryl, I love that painting on your door.
Do you like that?
I
Yeah,
love that.
that was over I hardly ever put animals in, but I put that one in. That was just on the other side of the mountain from my house when I used to live in the
Oh,
valley.
wow, wow, wow. And Rajani, how is your husband?
Oh, he is doing much better. Thank
Good,
you.
good. I prayed for him.
Oh, thank you so much, Linda.
Yeah, I thought about you.
Thank you. I missed the class. I missed everybody.
I know. We missed you in that last class.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Here it is same. That's why I wanted to join.
Yes,
Waiting when this will start.
yes. Well, that's wonderful. That makes my heart feel better. Thank you. I'm gonna warm my tea. Carol, did you get back on Facebook?
No,
They're not gonna let you back on? That's terrible.
I don't think so.
That's horrible.
Yeah, I think so too, but I'm on Instagram and I do see some people there. But
Mhm.
the people that I used to keep up with aren't on there. And like they live all over the place, California and
Yeah, sure,
Mississippi and
sure. I know, that's how my friends list is. They're all over the US
Yeah.
and the world.
so I'm just gonna let it rest a little bit and see what happens. That's the best I can do.
Yeah, I think what happened with your account, that guy stole your account and he's still using it. And that's what they're seeing. And they think you are the perpetrator instead of him.
Yeah,
Because that's what happened with my account when it got stolen.
somebody stole our business website once
Oh,
and put my husband's name. How was it? We didn't have a website, but we had a URL for it. Anyway, somebody, and they put a bunch of porn stuff on it.
oh,
And my husband kept getting these like 100 emails a day about all this weird stuff, and we couldn't
Yeah.
figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
So finally then we found out, and we changed the name from Peters Race Associates to petersrace.com, and
yeah.
that was all right. That worked out well.
I had an art website probably 10 years ago or more, 12 years ago, and someone and it was a lot of European and Asian, just all over Russia, Czechoslovakia, all over. And somebody stole the website and started putting porn on it.
Ugh.
And there was over 50,000 people on it, you know, and it was just an amazing art site, but I just shut it down. I shut it down. I just,
Yeah, I understand.
yeah. I said, I'm not dealing with that, you know.
So I went to the hearing. I was never in a hearing before.
Oh,
70, almost 77, and I've never been in a hearing room before.
yeah.
So they just said they didn't understand. They didn't understand something. They just pled stupid and just kept going on about how they didn't understand. They thought this, they thought that. Well, they signed a lease and the lease spelled it all out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because I didn't talk to them about paying, they couldn't pay their current rent, let alone the back rent. So,
Right.
and then they said, well, I didn't approach them about paying back rent. Well,
Well,
I knew
it's
there was no
due.
money there. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
so it was before a 3-judge panel, and they'll make a decision. And her only thing was she didn't understand it. And then she said, and if I get evicted, I'm going to be homeless, and I'll be homeless the rest of my life.
Oh,
And
well,
I thought, well, Rachel, you could get a job.
sure.
You could get
Yeah.
like a real job.
Yeah, but then you're not, you know, her parent. You may be related, but you're not her parent. And she should be, she's an adult. She can't expect another,
You sure as heck is an adult.
well, she's
And,
of
but
the age
I'm
to
the
talk.
fixer for my sister's whole family. Sooner or later, they all come to me for something.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, but she's the only one that doesn't really help herself.
Yeah. Oh, mercy. We all have those in the family, it seems.
I should have tried to evict them a year ago.
Yeah.
But I actually told her in an email, I will not throw you out in the winter.
Yeah.
So I waited till the spring. Well, then it was a surprise.
Yeah.
They hadn't paid rent for months, but it was a surprise.
Mm.
So anyway, we'll see what happens.
I'm sure there are homeless shelters, and I'll bet if you check, there's places they can go.
She's been homeless before.
She knows how to do it. She knows how to work.
She knows how to work it all.
Yeah.
That's right. And when she can't make it work, then she pleads stupid.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't understand that. I didn't read that whole thing.
Well, it's
Yeah.
like the law can be a law, and if you're ignorant of it, it's not the law's fault.
That's correct.
You know?
Ignorance is no excuse.
No, 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 no. Not
So anyway, that was the deal. It was interesting. I had to go to the lawyer and rehearse on Monday. Now I'm going to give you this and I'm going to ask you what that is. And you're going to tell me
right, right.
stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it went well and it was interesting and everything. It was just it was just weird.
Yeah. So if she feel, you know, just playing devil's advocate, if she feels she has nowhere to go, nowhere to turn, nobody to help her, did she even say, I'm pleading with you, please help me, or try to be kind to you? Oh my
She
goodness.
just said, if you evict me, I'm going to be homeless and I'll be homeless the rest of my life.
Well, poor
They
darling.
didn't mention they have children, or she has 2 boys.
Oh goodness. Well,
The
that's
same age as my grandsons.
oh goodness.
So, you know, I just feel so bad. I feel bad for the kids.
Yeah, of course.
I'm too nice. I keep getting this lecture from the lawyer, from everybody.
Yes. You are too nice. And your hair looks really nice. I like your haircut.
Oh, thank you.
I'm trying to grow mine back out to that one from my June cut. She shaved my head. I went back the other day and got it shaped up a little bit here and there. And she said, well, like, you haven't been in a while. I said, no, because you really gave me an extreme,
Oh my God.
extreme haircut. I didn't ask for that. She just took the liberty. I came home and my husband said, oh no. He had to sit down. I said, it's hair, it'll grow.
Yes, it grows back.
Yeah.
It grows back.
Well, I've missed you on Facebook.
Thank you. I miss talking to everybody.
I know.
Not that we talk a lot, we just pass each other and that's nice. And that's what I liked about the other people, you know, from painting classes years ago.
Sure.
Yeah, we just, you know, one will post, the other post, and you'll just see a little thumbs up kind of thing. Not necessarily a comment, but it's just nice staying in touch.
It is. That's a way just to feel connected.
Yeah.
I'm surprised how many new people are on Instagram though.
Oh, I have Instagram. I don't frequent it that often though.
Well, your Instagram comes with your Facebook, actually.
Yeah.
Except that I had an Instagram before I had Facebook.
Oh.
Because somebody told me that was a good place to do your paintings.
Right.
So that's the one I'm using now.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I go back, I put in the thing and put in a different name or put in something else.